Hey everyone, welcome back to Streetball AllStars. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the game's fallen giants, Natalie. Let's get into it. So before anything else, I'd like to first give you a little summary, or a little history, I should say, about Natalie. So Natalie released with I wouldn't really say broken, but it was pretty overpowered at the time. Move, which is her layup floater. This used to be really broken since number one, people still didn't know how to defend it, that efficiently. But number two, blocking characters, block-based characters weren't plagued by every big at the game. Not every big was a blocking based character, whereas now pretty much all new characters, to be more specific, all new bigs can block. Reno can block, Elise Robbie can block, Malik can block. They're all pretty much just block based character now, but Emily and such. Besides the point, Natalie used to be very effective, very effective. Even at high tier, some actually really struggle with stopping her as well. One of them being me. At some point, it was really hard to actually try and stop Natalie, especially when I still didn't know the timing. But yeah, Natalie used to be one of the most overpowered characters in the game, and she used to be a Titan. But as of right now, I'm not gonna lie, she really isn't that good, especially in high tier battles. With just how overpowered blockers are, Natalie doesn't stand a chance at all. Her layup floater is basically dead if she goes up against another OP blocker, which isn't really that hard to come across, let's be honest. But yeah, with that little history, a synopsis of her history being said, let's go ahead and get into Natalie's actual job. What is she supposed to do? And basically, she is a character that scores in the paint, and her scoring basically comes from layup floaters and double pumps, but she also has passing abilities there. We'll get into that later, but with those being said, let's go ahead and look at her abilities. So we can see here that at base she has a 50 3-point shot. That's actually really good for a small forward. Giving her more 3-point shot would make her incredibly accurate with her flash shot 3-pointers. She's actually very accurate with these. 65 mid-range, that's actually on the lower end for a small forward. It doesn't make her bad at it, it's just that some are more accurate with it. But yeah, Natalie can definitely shoot those mid-range shots if he's wide open, and sometimes she can also make it even if she is contested. 81 close shot, one of the highest in the entire game, and that should be the case since that is her job. But in all honesty, I'm not even gonna lie, I've seen her miss way more than she should, especially even after the Ace update. She still has been missing some layup floaters or some normal layups, some double pump. She still is missing those, and that just seems unfair to me. But yeah, 81, still one of the highest in the game, still very true. She actually is very accurate here, it's just not as accurate as it needs to be. 48 dunk, that actually is pretty good for a small forward, and Natalie definitely can do that. She can dunk really well, especially if she goes up against other SFs or shooting guards, maybe point guards. She can dunk on him pretty well, and she do a pretty good job. It's not going to miss that much. So 35 steal, 35 dribble, 40 pass, all pretty low for a small forward. Actually, her pass is, decent enough. Especially, again, we'll talk about her skills later, but she can actually pass as well. 40 pass is not the highest, but that's pretty decent for a small forward. We got 70 speed, that's actually really high for a small forward. It's one of the highest small forward speeds in the entire game, and there's actually truth to that. If you, again, here's a little anecdote. Before, when she was still pretty overpowered, since Ace still hasn't been released, everybody has, lower speed. Some characters haven't gotten that speed buff yet, Natalie definitely was one of the faster SFs back then. If you managed to fake out somebody from the inside and they jump, you were fast enough that you can actually shoot a flash shot 3-pointer once you try to actually run towards the 3-point line. Once you fake someone out, it was that good. So 70 speed, this is not a lie, she's actually really good when it comes to speed. Not as fast, now that other SFs also have the Ace update, but yeah. 70 speed, still pretty good for small forwards especially. 44 jump, that's actually pretty good, but it's not her job to just keep on dunking anyway. 36 rebound, 48 block, and 38 power. All not really that good except for power. Her power is actually pretty decent again for a small forward. And with that being said, what do I want you to give her? Well, I want you to give her mostly just speed and a good amount of power as well. You can do half and half speed, half power, or a lot of speed and a good amount of power, and then you can just put a little bit of 3 points for Natalie to make her 3-pointers a bit more accurate. But yeah, that's pretty much what I want you to do. I want you to give her speed and power, a little bit of speed, maybe quite a bit of power, maybe half and half, maybe a bit more speed than power, and then just a little bit of 3 points. That's what I want you to give Natalie, because that is still going to be her job, scoring on the inside while being able to pass from the outside with decent defense ability. So with those being said, let's go ahead and take a look into her different skills. Alright, so here we can see Natalie's different skills, so let's go ahead and talk about all of them. So firstly, we have fadeaway mid shot. Not really that important for Natalie's kit, since it doesn't really pair well with most of her abilities. It isn't really her job to use this skill that much, so it's a useful skill to have if you do have the extra space for it, but not really mandatory to get. Next up, we have double pump. 100% mandatory for Natalie. See, this skill is one of her only other few scoring moves, and it's really important since it does allow her to actually switch up her offense, which is really important, especially with how broken the defense characters that have been releasing. They've just been so OP, and Natalie's she's been bullied so much, and double pump 100% needed. It's just way too important to not get this. Make sure to max this out. Next up, we have flash shot. Any character who has this ability needs to learn it ASAP. Pretty much mandatory for all characters who are able to actually get flash shot. Way too important not to get. Make sure to max this out. And with that, let's go to her exclusives. So we have her first level 4 turnaround pass. Pretty important, especially since it allows you to actually use dribble combos to actually lead into you scoring. It's not the most useful skill in the world, and I think Natalie could use a rework too, just to make her a little bit more useful, but for now, you do want to actually get this. It just allows for good dribble combos that leads to scoring. So make sure to max this out so that you don't actually get your dribble cancelled when you activate the skill. Next up, we have layup floater. Pretty much her main scoring ability. Make sure to get this, max it out as soon as possible. She needs this, okay? Make sure to max this out because this is going to be your main scoring tool. This skill is way too important not to get. And again, this is going to be the main scoring tool that you have. You can dunk, you can flash shot, but layup floater is your way of just scoring most of the time. Make sure to max this out. Next up is other level 4, or her other level 4 layup pass. Make sure to get this as well. Very important, especially if you max it out, since again, Natalie always attacks on the paint, So this becomes very useful for her to actually switch up her offense and to fake opponents out. This helps again with those 3-pointers as well. If you know what you're doing, you can be pretty effective with it. So make sure to max out layup pass as well. And lastly, she has screen turnaround. She's actually the second character that was, able to get this. First one being Natalie. Screen turnaround, pretty useful to have, but not really mandatory, especially with Natalie. She's pretty good at defense, but again, I think she could use a rework, which makes her better offensively. But yeah, screen turnaround, very nice to have, not really mandatory, but if you have the gems to spare, I do actually recommend that you get this. Not mandatory, but very nice skill to have on your arsenal. So we saw there that, it's a good mix of offensive and defensive skills. It's just that with how overpowered defensive characters have been, let's be honest, Natalie's a little outmoded, She's just obsolete compared to these new defensive, characters that are just way too overpowered. But yeah, with those being said, let's go ahead and get into a match where we use Natalie, and let's talk about Natalie some more. Alright, so firstly, let's talk about the teammates that you're actually going to want to get when you use Natalie. Who are you going to want to actually play with if you use this girl? So, when it comes to the point guard that you're going to want to play with, put it simply, you're going to want a scoring point guard. Characters like Nana or Jackie, maybe Mo-chan or Lily as well. They're pretty good picks. Those characters you're going to want to get, since Natalie, again, will be doing a lot of passing with her layup pass, with how her offense work. She's going to need a scoring point guard so that, offensive load doesn't all come down on her. Again, the best one you're probably going to get is either Jackie or Nana, but those other characters that I've also said might work. And when it comes to a big man, you're going to want to get a character who's good at screening the point guard, letting Natalie ISO under the ring. That's a good way of actually opening up the space for her, making offense a little easier since, she's not going to get double teamed, and you screening the point guard gives her better opportunities when she passes to the point guard. So yeah, you're going to want a big man who's great at screening and also rebounding, and of course that means Emma is going to be the best character for you to pair Natalie with. And a good substitution would be Robbie. Robbie would be pretty good with that as well. And if you really don't have anybody else besides from Emma, a good one would be Andrew, or Vanessa would work as well, with just how well she can actually rebound from so far. So yeah, those bigs are the ones that I'm going to recommend. And when it comes to point guards, it's going to be scoring point guards. So next up, how does Natalie actually, fare up against certain strategies? What are the strategies that you're gonna want to actually get or avoid when you use Natalie? And simply put, when it comes to actually preferring a certain strategy, to get a matchup with, there's not really one that you're gonna want in particular. It's all going to be really fair. The only thing you want to keep in mind is you're gonna want to avoid OP blockers. That's right, those are the only ones that you're gonna want to avoid in particular. OP blockers. Who are those? Well, those characters will be, characters with big blocking height, even though, their blocking stat isn't even really that good, but their built-in block height is really good. Characters like Malik, Elise, characters like Emily, Robbie. Nikolai is actually pretty good as well. Vanessa does a pretty good job, but yeah, those newer characters, the newer characters that are being released, to be more exact, newer big men, you're all gonna want to pretty much avoid all of them because their blocking height is overpowered, yada yada. Those are really the only ones that you're gonna want to avoid. Again, the ones that you're gonna get There isn't really one. They're all just fair for Natalie. You can do pretty well against them if you know what you're doing, but you're just gonna want to avoid OP blockers. To be more exact, those new characters that they're releasing that are very much overpowered defensively. And lastly is Natalie meta. Well, she used to be. She used to be very meta. She used to be really good on meta. She used to be really hard to stop. And it wasn't even like it was unfair. It was still very fair. She was just really hard to stop. And now she's not. She's pretty unusable on high tier. But anyways guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you've learned something new, something useful. I hope that you've been entertained by it somehow. And I'll catch you on the next one.